Hello everyone, today we will go over what you need to know before watching House of the Dragon. But before that, remember to like the video, helps out the channel a lot, and subscribe, and yada yada yada. Let's get to it. This is an introduction to events and characters that lead us to the beginning of the show, so there will be no spoilers. Our story begins with Jaehaerys Targaryen. He was only 14 years of age when he ascended the Iron Throne in 48 AC. His predecessor was Maegor the Cruel. Maegor was mad and killed those who opposed him. After Maegor's mysterious death, there was some doubt about the Targaryen rule because of the cruelty he displayed. Jaehaerys had to win back the loyalty of the people and the High Lords of Westeros. And Jaehaerys did. During his reign, Westeros was very prosperous. King's Landing grew immensely during this time, and there was peace. George R.R. Martin always described Jaehaerys as the road-building king. He worked on infrastructure, which in return would help the common folk. He actually came up with the idea to create actual roads in Westeros to unite the realms, the greatest of these being the King's Road. Jaehaerys Targaryen is considered to be the greatest Targaryen king to have sat the Iron Throne. The problem is who would be his successor. Jaehaerys was married to Alysanne Targaryen, his younger sister. The two loved each other very much and probably had one of the more normal marriages compared to other Targaryens. The two had 13 children: Aegon, Daenerys, Aemon, BAELON, Alysanne, Maegor, Vagon, Dalla, Sarah, Visera, Gaemon, Valerion, and Gale in that order. I probably mispronounced a couple of those names, not gonna lie. But his first heir was Aerya Targaryen, his older brother's first child. So to back things up, Rhaenys Targaryen, Jaehaerys and Alysanne's father, had 6 children. Aegon was the firstborn son of Rhaenys and married his older sister Rhaena. They had twin daughters, Aerya and Rhaella. After the death of Rhaenys, Aegon was next in line for the throne, but Maegor, his uncle, claimed the throne before he could. When people protested, saying this is not how the laws of inheritance work, they met a bloody end. When Aegon attempted to win the throne back, he was killed by his uncle. A couple of years after the death of Aegon, Rhaena, his widow, would marry his killer Maegor. The reason she did this was that one of Maegor's other wives had found her daughters, Aerya and Rhaella, and had them captive. Since Maegor had no children of his own, he declared Aerya as his heir until he had a son. Rhaella was sent to Old Town to become a sept. Maegor would never have children. After his death, some did argue for Aerya to sit the throne, but most supported Jaehaerys because he was older and because of his gender. Once Jaehaerys had children, she was no longer considered the heir. She would die a few years later in 56 AC. Aegon, Jaehaerys and Alyssanne's first child, was born too early and died 3 days later. Daenerys, their second child, died at the age of 7 from the shivers, which was a disease that plagued the Seven Kingdoms around 60 AC. Aemon Targaryen, their third child and now heir to the throne, would marry Jocelyn Baratheon and have a daughter, Rhaenys Targaryen, who would marry Lord Corlys Velaryon. In 92 AC, Aemon led an assault on Myrish pirates who were trying to conquer Tarth. He left for Tarth after finding out his daughter Rhaenys was pregnant with her first child. Aemon, while on Tarth, took a crossbolt to the neck when Myrish scouts found their camp. He died at the age of 37. Jaehaerys, losing another heir, decided to go with his fourth child, BAELON, as his next heir, passing over Rhaenys and the unborn child she is still carrying. This made Alysanne very mad, thinking Jaehaerys was favoring BAELON because he was a man. BAELON would marry his younger sister, Alyssa, and the two would have 3 children: Viserys, Daemon, and another Aegon. You can see they really like that name. Alyssa would die in 84 AC from complications after birthing Aegon, and Aegon would die a year later, though it's not said from what. In 101 AC, BAELON was on a hunting trip and complained he had a pain in his side. The pain worsened and he became bedridden. He died of a burst belly, which is appendicitis. So once again, Jaehaerys had to figure out his successor. His 6th child, Maegor, actually became a sept in Old Town who would nurse children with grayscale. She died of grayscale in 96 AC. The 7th child of Jaehaerys and Alysanne was Vagon. Vagon, at the age of 15, went to the Citadel and became an Archmaester. Archmaesters teach trainees to become maesters. After BAELON's death, Jaehaerys summoned his son to King's Landing. Some think he offered Vagon the throne, which he refused. Others believe Jaehaerys just wanted counsel on what he should do next. The 8th child, Dalla, was married to Lord Roderick ARRYN. The two would have one child, Aemma ARRYN. After Aemma was born, Dalla started getting a fever which worsened. Eventually, she died of it in 82 AC. She was 18. The 9th child, Sarah, was a bit of a wild one. Jaehaerys found out she was sleeping with 3 different men. She told Jaehaerys she would marry one of the lads but couldn't decide, so she suggested marrying all 3 like her ancestor Aegon or Maegor. The mention of Maegor made Jaehaerys furious. The whole situation made him angry in reality. He sent her to Old Town to become a Silent Sister. Her sister Maegor was actually her instructor. Jaehaerys thought a year of this would be a good punishment, but he never intended for her to join them. But Sarah did not care for this and snuck away. She sailed to Lys, where she worked at a pleasure garden, so a whore, which made Jaehaerys even angrier, basically disowning her. Later, Sarah would own her own pleasure house. She also had 3 bastard sons fathered by 3 different men. The 10th child, Visera, was very ambitious. She wanted to be queen. When BAELON's wife Alysanne died, she wanted to marry her older brother, but Alysanne and Jaehaerys would not have it. She was going to be married to a Manderly. Visera tried everything to get out of it, but couldn't, even tried seducing BAELON. With her move to White Harbor in sight, she decided to have one more fun night in King's Landing with the girls. When returning to the Red Keep, her horse collided with another, which sent her from her saddle, and she broke her neck. She died in 87 AC, 15 years of age. Daemon, the 11th child, was born very small. He died in 74 AC, a few months after his birth. Valerion would have the same fate, was very small when he was born, and would die right before his first name day in 78 AC. The 13th child, Gale, was small but survived for a while, though she was simple-minded and frail. She really helped her mother, Alysanne, because she was so sad about losing so many children. They were constantly together. But in 99 AC, Gale disappeared and it was announced that she died of summer fever, but in reality, Gale was seduced by a traveling singer. She gave birth to a stillborn son, and overwhelmed by grief, she walked into Blackwater Bay and drowned in 99 AC. Less than a year later, Alysanne, King Jaehaerys' wife, would die in 100 AC. Jaehaerys would really become a shell of himself after this. He outlived his beloved sister wife and basically outlived all of his children. But there was still an issue of who would sit on the throne next. Vagon, his last living son, told him he should host a great council where they can settle the debate, which would become known as the Great Council of 101 AC. It was held at HARRENHAL since it was really the only place big enough to house such an event. Great lords to minor lords came from all over to vote on who would sit on the Iron Throne after Jaehaerys. Jaehaerys had 4 living grandchildren, Rhaenys, Viserys, Daemon, and Aemma ARRYN, who was married to Viserys at this point. And since Viserys was the older brother of Daemon, you could count him out as well. So the Great Council had to decide between Rhaenys and Viserys for the throne. But there were some other people in the vote as well. Rhaenys and Corlys's kids, Laena and Laenor. Some of Sarah's bastard sons came to the Great Council as well to press their claim, but were mostly ignored. So there was 4 legitimate claims. Now this part could be considered spoilers since it is how the show starts, which has been confirmed by the showrunners, but if you have watched the trailers or seen any images, you know who gets voted for the throne, and that's what I will be discussing. So Rhaenys had a really good claim. Her father Aemon was the eldest son of Jaehaerys, and she was his only child. But the High Lords of Westeros passed over her because she was a woman. The same thing happened to her eldest child, Laena. So the vote went between Viserys and Laenor. Laenor did have being the grandson of Aemon working in his favor. It also helped that his father was Corlys Velaryon, who was the wealthiest person in Westeros. They had more money than the Lannisters, and Corlys didn't mind buying votes for his son. What Viserys had going for him was his age. He was 24 and he already had a daughter, Rhaenyra. Laenor was only 7 years of age and he wouldn't be able to rule for a long time. The High Lords of Westeros also liked how Viserys came from the male line, Jaehaerys to BAELON to him. Laenor came from his mother. So the lords voted and Viserys would be the next heir to the Iron Throne. This did not sit well with House Velaryon being passed over even when they had a better claim. Rhaenys would be dubbed as the Queen Who Never Was after this, a burning reminder of this day. After the Great Council, Jaehaerys started losing his strength and wits and was confined to his bed. He died in 103 AC. He was cremated in the Dragon Pit, and his ashes were intertwined with Alysanne's on Dragonstone, letting the two be together for eternity. Jaehaerys was 69 years of age and ruled for 55 years. All of Westeros mourned for his death. He was able to bring peace and prosperity to the land. And this is where we find ourselves at the beginning of the show. Will King Viserys be able to keep his house intact, or will it crumble under him? So are you excited for House of the Dragon? Leave it down in the comments below. And if you want more House of the Dragon content, please subscribe and like the video. Check out the Twitter link in the description below. And as always, have an awesome day.